This episode of Around the Oval is brought to you by Todd Pennington with Renovation Mortgage.
Hey, Ohio State fans, Alex Gleitman here, back with another edition of Around the Oval brought to you by Todd Pennington with Renovation Mortgage. It was a big week for Ohio State. Chandler, Arizona quarterback, 2024 class, Dylan Raiola, the number one overall player in the class, committed to Ohio State on Monday. His birthday, it was a little late, East Coast time. I literally almost fell asleep, kind of waiting for the news to happen. I think it was like 11:30 Eastern time, but he did it. He committed to Ohio State, becoming the first member of the 2024 class. Absolutely huge commitment for Ohio State. And to talk about that commitment, as well as some other quarterback dominoes that kind of could fall into play with Raiola coming into the fold, is Bill Greene. Bill, appreciate you joining the show.
Yeah, man. Glad to be here.
Of course. So let's just, jump right into it. Dylan Raiola, number one player in the class for a while. It looked like maybe Jaden Davis was going to be the guy for Ohio State, but they've always liked Raiola too. They hosted him for the first time in the fall, brought him back twice in April. He actually committed to Ohio State on that second visit around the spring game, decided to wait until his birthday just a couple days ago on May 9th to make that commitment public. What's your reaction? I mean, how big is this for Ohio State? How big is this to start their 2024 class?
Yeah, it's huge. You always want to lock in that QB. And this kid's one of the best in the class. So it takes away a lot of the waiting game. I'm never really big on, kids being the lead recruiter for their class, especially when they're linebackers or offensive guards or something, but when it's a quarterback and it's a main well-known national quarterback, well, I think that there could be some coattails on this where, there are kids that do want to play with Dylan Raiola. So I think it can have a huge effect on the skill guys in this class. Although I think Ohio State's already in really good shape with like J.J. Smith and JoJo Trader. But they have met, Dylan, and they know each other, and so it's all good for Ohio State. You always, quarterback, single most important position in all of team sports. So to lock that dude up now is huge for Ryan Day. You got that one in place. Then you can kind of branch out for everything else. But you got the building block in place now, and it's gigantic.
Yeah, and it's funny. You look at the three quarterbacks on Ohio State's roster. C.J. Stroud was a kid. I don't think that they got him until December officially. Yeah,
he was offered in November, and I think Devin Brown was as well.
Yeah, and they got him in November, and then Kyle McCord was an early kid. That was real early, which was good. But then Devin Brown was real late too. So they, you talked about getting that quarterback locked in early, and it's not something that Ohio State has necessarily done with some of the great players they have in that room. I mean, McCord, yes, and Jack Miller was a yes, but he wasn't the stud. I mean, Stroud was the stud, and obviously Quinn Ewers was somewhat early, ended up enrolling a year early, but the guy they ended up within that class, Devin Brown, was late. So I think it's huge to get a player of this caliber in the class early. I think everyone always looks at the quarterback as the leader on the field, leader in the recruiting class. Even not even forget 2024 guys. I mean, 2023 guys, receivers and things like that. I mean, I saw Bryson Rogers FaceTiming with Dylan Raiola, yesterday, and that could be his quarterback that's throwing the ball to him just because of how good Ohio, like C.J. Stroud will be gone, and one of McCord or Devin Brown might be gone by the time Bryson Rogers is ready to hit the field, if not both of them. So Dylan Raiola may be his guy, and it's really going to be interesting to see, does he live up to the hype? Does he stick throughout? I think he will, just given his dad. And, this wasn't a random decision. This was a well thought out decision with a ton of research and visits done. So, great get for Ohio State. I guess my question now for you is the impact it has on recruiting. Ohio State in the 2023 class does not have a quarterback commit. And right now I think they're going to take one, a high school kid.
Have to.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they're just going to rely on the portal to get some depth.
No.
I think they're going to take a high school kid like they've been stacking up C.J. Stroud, Kyle McCord, Devin Brown.
Stack them up, just like Heartline does.
Yeah, I know they were out to see the kid at St. John Bosco this week, the Steve Clarkson's kid, Pierre Clarkson, I think his name is. He's committed to Louisville. I know they're out to see him throw. They're doing their homework. I'm sure they'll have kids at camp. Sure. This is the time to see it. But I guess, Bank, my question on this, adding Dylan, does that maybe scare away a 2023 quarterback?
No, there's not a 2023 kid in the country that's worried about a kid younger than them. I've never met one before. Those kids all think, now they may be worried about people ahead of them. When you stack a bunch of them ahead of them, that tends to kind of, when you're depth chart conscious, it's usually not looking back. No one ever worries about the people behind them. So I say no on that. I don't think Dylan Raiola will scare off a 2023, but McCord and Devin Brown may. So yeah, we'll see what happens there.
That's what I was going to say. I think you come in, you have a year more in the system. You go with that natural order of, all right, McCord or Brown, then me as the 2023, and then Dylan's turn, Raiola's turn.
Yeah.
It may not work like that, but I think that's probably their mentality. And if that's not someone's mentality, you probably don't want them on your roster anyway. If they're scared to compete, especially with someone they'll have a year ahead of. But I agree about McCord and Brown. I think if you're Ohio State, the sell has to be like, look, the reality of college football today, those guys are going to compete for the job next year after CJ leaves. And we hope they both stay. We want them to both stay. But in reality, maybe you get another, if Kyle McCord wins the job, maybe you get a year out of Devin Brown to sit and wait and see if McCord's good enough to pull a Dwayne Haskins, start for 1 year and then go off to the NFL. Maybe. But he may also say, I could go start at Arizona State, Utah, USC, like wherever he may get, he could probably start at 95% of the schools in the country in his second year in college. Ole Miss, a school like that would die to have a kid like Devin Brown come in and play football for them. So it will be interesting to see how that one plays out. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But I think where it could have more effect is maybe 2025. As you said, those kids looking at who's ahead of them. And I know Ohio State, they've looked at a couple 2025 kids. One they've offered is Ryan Montgomery out of Findlay. Started as a freshman, younger brother of Ohio State 2023 commit Luke Montgomery. I think we both, obviously, I know he's going to make his own decision, but I think we both would probably agree that we have Ohio State as the early leader right now.
Sure.
Long way to go. And as we said, he's going to make his own decision. He's a different kid than Luke. Does this have a negative impact? Does Dylan Raiola coming in have a negative impact on Ryan Montgomery?
No. Does Ryan Montgomery think that they won't recruit someone ahead of him? It's just the nature of college football. You know what I mean? Unless Ryan Montgomery wants to go to Virginia Tech or, I don't know, Kentucky or something, there's going to be a stud waiting on him when he gets there. So if you're all about competing and being the best and competing against the best, no, it won't scare him off. In fact, the Ohio State quarterback room, it could thin out really quickly. You know what I mean? CJ Stroud will only be there through this year. He is gone. Number 1 pick in the draft. Excuse me. Battling that summer cold right now. There is no way Devin Brown is going to back up Kyle McCord. There's no way Kyle McCord is going to back up Devin Brown. I feel one of them will be gone. Then you got Raiola. And if Ryan Montgomery comes in, sits a year, red shirts, and hangs in there, that room gets really thin. So, it'll be Brown / McCord, one of them, and then Raiola, and then Ryan. And, you wait your turn, you bide your time, you make yourself better, and eventually you get on the field. But no, I don't think Dylan Raiola scares off Ryan Montgomery.
Yeah, I agree. And those Montgomery kids were brought up with that competitive spirit, and they're not, they're worrying about themselves and getting better. And, I don't think they're going to be scared of a little competition. And I agree. That room's going to get thin and short real quick. And he might be, in year one, he might be one play away from being the starting quarterback at Ohio State, just like Kyle McCord was this year. Right. Exactly. Kyle McCord, I mean, I know he looked like a freshman in that Akron game, and you or I probably could have started at quarterback and beat Akron pretty handily that game.
You could have for sure. I don't know about me.
Well, all you have to do is just hand off to Trey Henderson and you're good probably.
I could do that.
Yeah, but I think, if he came in that game and was a stud and they were like, you know what, let's give him one more game. Let's let CJ rest the shoulder. And he comes out and he kills Rutgers.
You never know.
At that point, people were calling for CJ Stroud to hit the bench, which is funny now, but it's, you could literally be one play away or one game away from being the starting quarterback that young. So I think it's really interesting to see how this is going to play out. And I know we kind of talked about it a little bit, but where I wanted to end this show is talking about the current guys on the roster. Obviously, CJ Stroud, we all think he's going to have a killer year, go pro, possibly be the number 1 overall pick, Heisman Trophy winner, hopefully lead Ohio State to a national championship this year. But, the guys behind him, I agree with you. I think, first of all, if Kyle McCord loses the job next year to Devin Brown, there is negative chance he's coming back to Ohio State. I mean, negative chance. Now, if Kyle McCord wins the job, I do think, and I spoke to Devin Brown at length, and I know things get different when you get on campus and you see everything going on. You get that hunger to get back and play. But he was very clear about, he picked Ohio State because he believed in the ability of Ryan Day and Corey Dennis to develop him as a quarterback. He even mentioned to me Joe Burrow. He said, I hope it works out. But he even told me, like, even if it doesn't work out down the line, you saw what it did for Joe Burrow, just being able to learn at Ohio State for a few years and then be able to go do his thing elsewhere. And he said, I hope I can learn and develop over a few years, do my thing in Ohio State and go to the NFL. But if it happens to end up being somewhere else, I'm not going to regret that decision one bit to get that coaching. So I could see a scenario where Kyle McCord, who will be in his 3rd year and NFL eligible after the 2023 season, starts, kills it. I mean, because Kyle, if he's going to want to get out and go to the NFL as fast as he can, he's going to be smart about it. But if he could do that after 1 year, Devin Brown could be then a quarterback with multiple years of eligibility at Ohio State. But when you talk about these 5-star kids that are that good, as we said, they could start anywhere in the country. So I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but how do you see that one playing out between those two guys?
Too soon to tell. I mean, the best guys are going to play. I mean, I think Ryan Day has shown that he has to win. Okay. And in Ohio State, the pressure to win is so great. We saw it last year, 2 regular season losses, and it's looked like a disaster. I mean, it is awful. They did not win the Big Ten. So that's a disaster also. So you can't mess around. You have to play the best guys. You have to win. So we're going to see. I mean, next year, it's a big year for Kyle and Devin, as much as it is for CJ. And God forbid something would happen to CJ, even if CJ would have to sit out a month, they're probably going to play Kyle, I would think, or they're going to play the best guy because they have to win. And that's going to tell the other guy where he stands. So we'll see. It's just, we've seen so many crazy things over the years where, I remember a time when, Cardell Jones was totally buried at Ohio State. Buried, and then there he is starting a semifinal game in a college playoff national championship game. You never know what can happen. So I hate to even guess. I mean, I'm just, I think CJ is going to be unbelievable this year, barring some sort of injury, number 1 pick in the draft. And then Kyle and Devin fight it out, for 2023. I just don't see how the guy that loses that job stays, but I could be dead wrong. Like you said, you laid out a pretty good scenario where, if Devin loses to Kyle, I think there's a chance that he stays. If Kyle loses to Devin, he's not staying a day past that. So it all works out. My feeling is get the best kids you can get every year. And then if a guy transfers, it doesn't matter because you're going to get somebody else. I think the Heartline approach is the greatest approach at building a championship squad. Bring in stud after stud after stud after stud. You don't worry about who leaves because you're going to go get another stud to replace that stud. And then you just pack that room. And that's what I would do with the quarterbacks. I would bring in as many great players as I could.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think you got to take a quarterback every single year, especially with the way the transfer portal is active right now. And yeah, I mean, I think that's what you got to do. You saw what happened last year with Jack Miller and what you were talking about and who's the first guy in and things like that. And it was very clearly they thought the next best option behind CJ Stroud was Kyle McCord, and that allowed Jack Miller to make an easy decision. And I do think Kyle McCord is going to be next man up this year, no matter what, just his experience and his talent.
Yeah,
I mean,
I do too.
Jack Miller was a clear level below in talent than a Devin Brown or a Kyle McCord or a CJ Stroud, I think. And, they did a good job of getting him in there. And I think if he had to play, he would have been fine. But, it was very clear. So it's definitely, we're going to track what they do, but I think it's going to be more important what happens after the season, in the winter, what we see. They'll probably duke it out all spring ball.
Yeah.
And then someone will kind of know where they stand at that point, and we'll see a decision or a non-decision at that point. If Devin Brown's okay with competing through the fall and saying, I'm going to stay at Ohio State year 2, no matter what, then he might just stay. And as you said, he could be one play away from being the starting quarterback that year too. And I think, it's crazy because if you think about it, if Devin does win the job, he has a great year in 2023 as a starter. And then that money year in 2024, kind of like CJ Stroud, Dylan Raiola might be, he might be starting as soon as, year 3 in the program as well. So, be one play away in year 2 from being that starter. So it's really interesting to see how this is going to play out. I think the one thing I'll take away is that as an any Ohio State fan out there, you should have zero concerns about quarterback recruiting, quarterback play, and whatever. My only concern would be depth. I do wish that they went out and got a Gunnar Hoke type or a Chris Chugunov type just to have as that fourth quarterback in the room from a depth perspective, just because you never know. So I don't think that would be such a bad thing for next year either, especially with a first-year starter behind center, no matter who it is. But that's really my takeaway, is that no matter what, you probably won't, other than maybe a little bit of depth, you really shouldn't have to worry about quarterback under Ryan Day at Ohio State.
No, not at all. And he's proven that since he's been there. Kids want to play in this offense. I mean, and I don't blame them. If I was a top flight QB, I would want to play in this offense. If I'm a big time receiver, I definitely want to play in this offense. So, if you look at the quarterback, wide receiver, running back, the skill on offense is not a problem at all. They can match up with anyone. The NFL draft proves that. So, really, we talk about these positions, and we really should be talking about O-line, D-line, because that's where the rubber meets the road in terms of this program taking the next step and competing for national titles every year and being a legitimate threat to win a national title every year. It's not quarterback or wide receiver, not at all.
Yeah, for sure. And again, it's going to be really interesting to watch how this all plays out. But at the end of the day, Ohio State, for now, great player in Dylan Raiola. Future is bright in that room. Bank, thanks as always for joining us. Listeners, thank you as always. We'll see you next week.
This episode of Around the Oval was brought to you by Todd Pennington with Renovation Mortgage. If you've been thinking about refinancing or buying a house, check out our sponsor, Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. They offer low rates for refinancing and home purchase loans, including first-time home buyer programs, down payment assistance, and cash-out home equity loans. Check out revolutionmortgage.com/tpennington.